And then once I defined that, it was like, you kind of, once you distinguish that, you get power. So I do understand what you're saying, which takes me to acceptance. Acceptance for me was the final nail in the coffin. It was how I was able to release and move on, which, how you have the tipping point where you're like one day, one moment, and then all of a sudden you're like, whew, and you can breathe. What was your acceptance moment?
I remember that clearly too. Like I said, our stuff was like all financial.
Mhm.
And so we had this like really big kind of like 3-month period that was trial for our mortgage. This is like full disclosure. I'm telling you my whole life. Um, but it was the last month of that, which was like, 4 or 5 days of lying, 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 lying. The mortgage almost not getting paid, me swooping in again and saving the day and paying the mortgage. And I just remember it was that moment where it was like, I have to leave. Like, it's not even like what I want. Like, I want it. And that goes back to expectations. Like, I wanted him to want to be in this marriage. And it was just, he again was showing himself to me. This is what it will be, Jill. You keep seeing the same behavior. You have to finally acknowledge it and accept it and for what it is. He's not going to be this person that's going to pay the mortgage on time or pay it at all. And so it was that December, which is what, this December will be 5 years separated. I remember saying to my sister, I have to leave, don't I? I have to. And, for the first like 6 months after, I still didn't really want that. But in that 6 months too, he kept showing himself again, wasn't doing anything to save the marriage, wasn't doing anything to get us back, wasn't doing anything. And yeah, that was the tipping point. It was like, I have to. It wasn't even I want to. It's like, I have no choice at this point.
And emotionally, what happens to you when you make that choice?
There was such relief in that because for years, I mean, this was years in the making. I was actually just talking to my sister about this the other day. It's like, I was so tortured by what to do. I was so unhappy in the situation, but I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know, do I leave? Do I stay? My kids, I don't want them being in a broken home. How could I do this to them? But the marriage is terrible and I don't want that. Like, I stayed stuck in this very tortured place of uncertainty and what to do. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I just wish someone would tell me what the right thing to do was. Like, I wish someone would say, here's exactly what you have to do because I had no idea what the right move was. I didn't know if leaving was the right thing. I didn't know if staying and fighting for the marriage was the right thing. I was tortured by this decision of like, what do I do? And somebody please just tell me, like, give me the crystal ball and be like, here is what you do, Jill, and this is what's going to make it okay. Like, and so once the decision was made, like you said, nail in the coffin, there was that relief of like, okay, the decision's been made because I was tortured over it for years, what to do.
It's a big decision to make because it's like you got to alter your entire reality. It's like it's a paradigm
Huge.
shift.
It's a huge decision. And it's not even like, it's like letting go of like these hopes and dreams that you had for your life too. I think a lot of people stay stuck in that, like what they had hoped for their life. And then they start to, and I did this too, like you recreate the reality of the marriage because you were like, and you start to mourn what you thought you would have when in reality, you never had that. You never had this dream life or family dynamic or the holiday. You didn't have it, but you start to grieve what you thought it should have looked like instead of like the reality of what it was.
Yeah.
So it's like even leaving, even making that decision, like I'm making the decision not to have family unit over holidays. I'm making the decision to not have traditions. I'm making the decision not to have family memories. Like it's a tough decision.
So what does marriage mean now?
Wow, it's a heavy question. Partnership for me, I think that's really important. And I don't, and this is the thing, like someone wrote on my Instagram, like, why do you want everybody divorced? I don't want
I don't
anybody
want anybody
divorced.
divorced.
I don't wish this upon anybody.
Yeah.
But the fact remains this happens and it
Yeah.
happens to a lot of people. So why not support these people that are going through one of the most challenging transitions of their life? So I still very much believe in the sanction of marriage. I think it could be a beautiful, wonderful partnership. But I think that's what it needs to be is a partnership. And you have each other's back and you're a unit and you do life together and you're honest and you communicate and you support one another unconditionally and you're rooting for each other.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with you. I think that partnership is that's what it should be. Instead of saying, "Hey, let's get married," it's like, "Let's get partnership," because marriage is this piece of paper and this all these ideals and the storybook Disney esque, which is, it's great, it's beautiful, it's something to aspire to, but the reality is that it takes partnership to keep it going every day. I mean, it's a choice, and you gotta, there's 24 hours in a day, and 24 hours you're creating your marriage. People,
Yeah, in 24 hours you have to choose it. I remember thinking it's maybe it's a negative shift or maybe not, but I remember thinking marriage was more than a piece of paper.
Mhm.
Like before I got married, I was like, oh yeah, no, it's way more than just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll change, but I think there's more to marriage than a piece of paper now. And it's all those things that you just said. And it's so much bigger than just having that legal bond. Like there's so much more than just that piece of paper.
Yeah. And when two people agree on it, magic, man. Especially when you're
Yeah, I
supporting
still
each other.
believe in it. I still believe in it.
Yeah.
I still believe that people can have successful marriages and happy marriages. But like you said, it's work 24 hours in a day. You got
Yeah.
to work at it.
So you answered my question, which was going to be like, would you do it again? And I guess the answer is yes. So marriage
With the
for,
right person, yeah.
yeah,
And this is the thing for me too, and I'm very big on this, is I'm never going to settle. Like I worked really hard to be happy independently and create a life where I feel independent and secure and confident. And until I meet somebody that adds to that, I'm good because I did the married and divorced thing and I don't want to settle for anybody. So yes, I would, but it would have to be a really special person that meets all these things, wants and needs and all that.
I feel you on that. I can totally relate. Let me ask you this. When that person shows up now, like, do you fabricate that person or do you know? Like, when you're in a moment and everything feels great and you don't have to question it, to me, that's when you know. When you just wake up and when you're like, oh my God, this is all great. What is it for you? Like, how do you think you're gonna know when it happens? Like, do you have a checklist that when you go out on a date, are you checking it off? Or
Yes, I break out
you
my
have a
checklist. Hold on.
you're like, hold on a second.
Wait a second.
2A is not you haven't fulfilled on 2A, but you know what? You got 1 and
You
3C.
got 5C. You're good at 5C. So we'll move on to 7. I have, and this is, I talk to women a lot about this, is I think it's important to know not even just the checklist, like characteristics, but how do you want them to make you feel?
Yeah.
I think it's important. How do you want to feel about the person? And because I think you could have a piece of paper, but if this person doesn't light you up or doesn't make you want to be a better person or doesn't want you to care for, like make you want to put them before you and all those things, like it's not your person. So for me, it's more the feeling. How do I feel in it? How do they make me feel? Um, am I is this person having me show up in this relationship in a way that I want to show up? So some of the work that I do with the women that I work with is we talk about that. Like, how did you show up in your marriage? And what about that didn't you like? I know for me, I showed up in my marriage and I'm not a selfish person, but I never put my ex before me. And I don't want to do that in a relationship. I'm a twin and my twin sister is very much about her partner. And her partner is always on the top of her mind and she always thinks of him first. And we'll be somewhere and she's like, oh, I should buy this for him. And I'm like, who? And I remember when I was with my ex, I was like, who thinks like this? Because I was like, let me do me first. Let me figure out my stuff. Then I'll worry about him. So it's like, think about how you want to show up with that next person. Does that next person make you want to put them first? Are they top of mind for you? So for me, it's more the feeling and how they enable me to show up and how they treat me and how they make me feel than an actual like checklist.
Yeah. Where do the kids come into play with that?
I'm a huge tight ass about anyone coming near my kids.
Mhm.
I'm very like that's the one thing I'm very adamant about. Like no one is to meet my kids. I've only had one person meet my kids, and I've been separated for 5 years. Like to the point that whenever I was dating, I wouldn't even let them hear another man's voice on the phone
Yeah.
because they don't deserve that.
Nope.
They didn't sign up for this. They didn't sign up for this life of being, I don't even like saying broken home anymore. They didn't sign up for the life of divorced parents. And so I like I'm a mama bear and I try to protect my kids from as much as I can. And so until it's like the person, then no one meets my kids.
I agree with you 100%. My mom did the same thing with me, and I appreciated that. She did her dating, but I met very few men. I never heard them on the phone, and it was because that was my relationship with her, and I didn't need another male figure in the house. And I think that's super important. So
Yeah, and
coming,
there's not like, you do your best to create stability for your kids, but they're still getting, shuffled back and forth and they have two different homes. And so you want to make sure you're creating as much stability for them as you can. And bringing people in and out of their lives does not allow for that. So I'm very big on, creating stability and not just having like randoms in my kids. I'm like a tight ass with that, a tight ass with that.
rightfully so. So in the first 6 months, what was it like being a mom, being, separated? What were some of the emotions that you went through, and what is some of the advice that you can give to somebody that was in your shoes or about to be in your shoes?
It was really, really challenging. My kids were very young. My youngest was not even 1 when I left, and my older guy was 2, 2.5. So it was really hard, and I think when you're emotionally drained and upset, it's very hard to show up for your kids. You do, right? You go into this other like gear because that's what you do as a parent is you show up for them even when you're hurting. Um what I would say to my younger self at that time is like give yourself grace. Like you're doing the best you can. Show up for them and love them. Love and support them because I was worried about like who's got to be here, who's going to be there, who's going to daycare, who what do I have to pay for? And I remember like and I didn't do that for long, but I remember feeling like I wasn't fully engaged in like the things that I should have, like the big moments. And so I think, be invested in them in a way that you're showing up and are engaged and just love them. Like you're so worried about how they're going to turn out. And I remember being super focused on their behaviors like, oh God, is that because we're separated? And oh God, is that because we're getting divorced or they're in different homes? And I was hyper focused on their behavior and probably very short with them. I think just love them and like spend time with them and not, you know, and this is like a downfall of mine. I remember I can picture myself like running around the house doing a million things because you got to get everything taken care of. I'm like, just sit and read a book with them. Like the laundry, the house, the stuff will get taken care of at some point. Like I think it's critical in that first time. I mean, those especially those first 6 months when the dynamic has shifted and they're in two different homes that you really, really spend time with them. All the other stuff can wait. If they go to their dad's, then you do all the other adult stuff that you need to do, the cleaning, the laundry, the grocery shopping, but really spend time with them and just be with them.
What about conversation? Do you talk about the situation? Do you answer their questions? Do you talk to them like an adult, or do you talk to them like children when they ask, if they ask?
Um, I'm very big about talking to my kids as not adults, but I've never baby. Even when my kids were babies, I never baby talk to them. I talk to them straight. Like I talk to them like I would talk to you.
Yeah.
That's always been important for me. Um, they never, because they were so young. My little guy literally knows no different. He was 11 months when we separated, so he's never really asked any questions. And as far as it would go, is like, oh, are we at Daddy's this weekend or with you? And it's very matter of fact for him, really, because it's all he knows. My older guy, still, he was very young too. He was 2.5. Once he started to go to school, that's when things came up because I think he started to notice that parents live together.
Hmm.
So he would, some of the questions that would come up would be like, well, why do you and daddy not live together? And I would tell him, like, mommy, daddy love you very much, but sometimes mommy and daddies are are better off living separately, but we love you and we care about you. And those kind of conversations, not much further than that. And I don't say anything about their father. Like, I if daddy called, daddy's on the phone, like they'll find out on their own who he is. That's not my place to do that. But if they ever came to me down the road and asked if they were older, I'm going to be honest with them. I'm very, very big on honesty. Like, I was lied to my entire marriage. Like, I will never lie to my kids. There's certain details they don't need to know, but I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So when those moments come, I'll be honest and have real conversations with them. And I think unfortunately they're going to learn on their own without me having to say anything. And I think kids deserve to know if they ask questions. I think it's our job as parents to be honest.
That's a wrap on another episode of Divorce the First 6 Months. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more insights. Take care.